So just want to start off by thanking our staff, our college scouts, analytics, coaching staff. So many hours crisscrossing the country, working guys out, talking to coaches, the meetings that we've had. I feel like we're really prepared for next week. I feel like the draft was last week. We would have been ready to roll, but it's a great group of teammates, and they've put us in a position to succeed next week. So looking forward to it. But
Joe, what has this process been like the last few weeks, just preparing for the draft?
Yeah, a lot of great conversations, a lot of great meetings with our college scouts were here last week, and our coaches got together, and we just we went through everybody. We had a lot of good discussions and talked through some interesting scenarios and a lot of great players. And this week has been just some more strategy meetings with people, and so again, I think we're in a good spot. Excited about next week, and we definitely have 10 players that we're excited to take. So we're ready to roll.
Joe, it seems pretty clear that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks going pretty early on there within the first 5 or 6 picks. How does that impact you guys at 10 with the overall talent pool?
Yeah, if that happens, look, when we go over these strategy meetings, we're preparing for that not to happen. We're going to try to make ourselves a little bit more uncomfortable and less quarterbacks go, and just to see, what would we do in those scenarios. But, if 4 quarterbacks go, obviously that pushes more position players down the board to us. So, look, we'll see what happens, but we'll be ready if 1 quarterback goes, 2 quarterback goes, 4 quarterbacks, 5 quarterbacks. But, a lot of our discussions have been based around not that many going. So just to put ourselves in the most uncomfortable position possible.
When you have an older quarterback like Aaron, how important is it to surround him with as many playmakers as possible? And how mindful are you of that going into this?
Yeah, I think when you look back at some other situations where a player like Aaron has gone, there's been key playmakers around them, and so. We have some dynamic players already with Garrett, adding Michael Williams, Brees. I talked to you guys about it down in Florida, but we love our tight end room where it's at with Conk and Ruck and those guys. But so we feel like we have a lot of good players around them. So. And again, we've made some moves to shore up the offensive line, and feel like we have strong depth there. So I think we're really in a position where we're sitting at 10, and I think there's great flexibility there for us.
I was going to ask you that. How has the moves you've made previously affect what you're going to be able to do in this draft?
Well, look, I think the moves we've made have given us the flexibility, like I've said. But again, we're going to be sitting there, and 4 quarterbacks go. We're going to have some decisions to make at 10. We're going to be prepared if our phone's ringing. We're going to be prepared, and I think really it's a great opportunity to take best player available, like it is every year.
With your first round picks, there's been some guys you've taken that you knew there was a clear path for them to start already. Others, like Will or Jermaine, there wasn't quite a clear path when they drafted them.
Right.
What's your view with a first round pick in terms of coming in here and being a starter right away versus they might have to sit as a rookie?
Yeah. I think it's a positive thing if you have enough depth on your team so that a draft pick doesn't have to come in and play right away. I would say that just about anyone we draft, it's going to be a dogfight to break into the starting lineup. So I think there's a lot of good players. I mean, even warriors like Conk and Ruck. I mean, they're not going to go quietly into the night if we took a tight end. So we have. It's going to be tough for anyone we draft to come in and just stake their claim for a starting spot.
Is there a player or two, Joe, that you're looking at where if they find themselves outside of the top 3 picks, player happens to fall maybe to 4, maybe to 5, that you're willing to go up there and get, or are you pretty content sitting at 10?
No, those are the questions we're asking ourselves. Okay, who are those guys? Would you trade up? Who are those guys? How comfortable how comfortable are you moving up to get those players? So those are all the discussions that we're having right now. We're going to have more strategy meetings next week on, okay, who are those players that we would consider coming up from 10 to go get? How many of them are they? How far are you willing to go? Obviously, we don't have our full complement. We don't have a second-round pick this year, so that limits you a little bit on how far you can go up. But those are the conversations we're having. And then on the flip side, we get to 10 and we have a strong group of players that we love. How willing are you to move back? How far do you feel comfortable moving back? So those are all the conversations that we're having yesterday and all next week.
Can you give us an update on Zach Wilson, and are you optimistic that his situation could be resolved by the end of the draft?
Yeah. So look, I know you guys talked to Woody about Zach, and I share my thoughts are in line with Woody. That Zach is an asset, and at that same time, we're obviously open to trading Zach. There have been discussions. Nothing's really changed since we talked down in Florida, but we're open to trading him. There's just no news to report on that.
With his status, Joe, did you tell him that he doesn't have to come here for the spring program, or what's his status with that?
Yeah, I mean, all this is voluntary, so there's
Makes sense for him to be here though right now. With you're open to trading him, you've given him permission to trade. It seemed a little awkward if he was in the building right now.
Yeah, I think it's each player's choice whether they want to be here for phase one. These are all voluntary. There's quite a few players that haven't come for the first week. So look, that's a decision for Zach to make if he wants to be here.
Obviously, you have to do what's best for the team, of course. That's your number one priority. But how mindful are you of that? When you have a player like Zach who's been essentially in limbo for a few months. How much do you try to get him situated? Because a lot of jobs have been filled.
Yeah.
The last few months.
No, I mean that's the trick, right? That's the magic trick, sort of, so to speak, is to try to make sure that Zach's in a good spot, but also doing what's right for the New York Jets. So that is the line we're walking. But we have to do what's right for the team.
Is there a chance that he could be back? And had you talked to him about that? Is that on the table?
I mean, look, we're still in April. I mean, training camp's months away, so there's a chance for a lot of different things. So I'm not going to get into what's going to happen in training camp or the season.
How do you view the idea of drafting a quarterback, whether it's day 2 or day 3, someone to come in and learn from these veterans?
Yeah, I mean, again, the most important position in sports, and for us, it's funny. I was going back and looking just through some drafts, the way the teams handled the quarterback position, and I went back and looked at how the Packers handled the '90s. You draft a guy like Mark Brunell in the 5th round, and then you draft Hasselbeck in the 6th round, and you develop. They were a quarterback farm. When Favre was there, Aaron Brooks, and then they drafted Aaron in the 1st round. But I would love to be a quarterback factory like that. I would love to have quarterbacks that we take every year in the draft, and even if you hit on 2 or 3 like the Packers did. You can really turn those into future picks, or they develop into starters elsewhere, like Mark Brunell and Aaron Brooks and Hasselbeck all did.
How has Aaron looked, and what's it like having him back here?
Oh, it's great. It's just for him to come back now early. Just his presence is great, and just seeing him interact with Sauce and Garrett and Brees and Will and all the guys on the team. It's great having him back.
Are you going to pick up the 5th year on ABT?
We haven't talked about that yet, but we have a little time after the draft. But I'll definitely update you guys on that post-draft.
Now that since you're talking about Aaron there, you're exactly a year removed from the trade. Can you just retrospectively talk about how you feel about it a year later? It was such a historic trade, and also, secondly, how it's impacting your draft strategy this year, not having that second round pick.
Yeah. We don't have a second round pick this year, and if I had the choice of not having the second round pick or not having Aaron, I would take Aaron 15 times out of 10. Like we are. I mean, obviously, the injury was devastating for all of us, but we're so excited to have him part of this franchise. And just the leadership he brings is, I've talked about it. You guys are probably sick of me saying it, but him connecting with his teammates, his presence in the building, he's a great guy, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him as a man and spending time with him. And, I'm excited about this year.
So when you're making your picks, your first round, third round, how cognizant do you have to be that if everything goes according to plan, it looks like you're going to be pretty good on the offensive line, specifically the 2 tackle spots, but also those 2 guys you're relying on. With Tyron, there are injury issues, and with Morgan, there seems to be something that popped up late in the year.
Yeah. So that's obviously something we have to be mindful of, right? We had 16 or 17 different offensive linemen play for us last year. I think the silver lining in all that is that we have a lot of battle-tested depth on our roster. Every one of our backups started games last year because of what happened. So, but you're right, Connor, it's something we have to be mindful of, and not just at offensive line, but at other positions. There's guys coming off injuries, so we just have to be mindful of that as we're building the team.
How do you feel about your wide receiver depth? Having said that, because obviously that's been a source of questions too as well.
Yeah, we'll feel a lot better about it with adding Mike, and it's been great having him here, and he looks awesome. Again, there's battle tested depth in that group too, with X getting a lot of play time, Brownlee getting some playing time late. We're excited about the young guys we have there as well, and but yeah, if there's an opportunity to add to that group, as well as the O-line, as well as there's other positions too that haven't been asked about that we're going to be mindful of.
What appealed to you, Joe, about Reddick, and how did that come about, that trade with Howie?
Yeah, well, obviously he's been one of the most productive pass rushers in the league over the last 4 or 5 years, and just an electric presence off the edge, a guy that's a consistent finisher, and not only finishes at the quarterback, but gets the ball out usually when he does. And so adding that explosive element, and look, we feel like we already have a lot of supercharged Hellcats on that defense that can roll. So that's just another one to add to the group. And so having that much juice and energy and speed and on the defense, it certainly brings an explosive element.
Joe, what do you think of the playmakers as a whole in the top half of the draft? Seems to be a lot of guys obviously making an impact.
On the defensive players, you say?
No, offensive.
On the offensive, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
misheard you. Yeah, there's a lot of special players on the offensive side of the ball, and guys that are playmakers, and top level blockers, top level playmakers, dynamic playmakers, and they all have they're all a different flavor. So whether you want a precision route runner that's super productive, whether you want an explosive just freak, whether you want a high-level route runner that can go up and get the ball but also run by people. There's different flavors of blockers too, and a tight end that's a Swiss Army knife that you can move all around the formation and can really stress the defense. It's a really cool group.
There's a
Last one?
draft kind of notion about priority positions and premium positions, and those are kind of the only ones you should take top 10. Have you seen tight end evolve and change a little bit, where that spot is becoming a priority position, one worthy of potentially a selection that high?
Well, look, if that tight end can become someone that has turned into, what Kansas City, San Francisco, what Laporte did last year in Detroit, like those are dynamic weapons for your offense, and guys that put a lot of stress on your defense because they create mismatches. It's hard to put a linebacker on one of those guys. You put a DB on one of those guys, it creates a size mismatch, and you put a safety on those guys. Well, he better be able to run. He better be able to play man coverage. So, like, the right type of tight end can be a real weapon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, sir.